Andreea, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for inviting me, and I'm so happy to be here. It's an honor and a pleasure.
Yeah, of course. And you drove from Queens today
Yes.
during rush hour.
Yes, I wasn't expecting, but it took us 2 hours, but it is what it is. I'm here. It's all that matters.
Yeah, I feel like when you're not expecting rush hour or traffic to happen and it happens, it's bad, but not as bad. When you're anticipating the traffic and it is really bad, it just seems much worse.
Yeah, it's usually what happens with expectations, right?
Exactly.
Because
You got the lesson.
disappointment comes from expectations that are unreasonable. So there we go.
Whenever the bar is set very low and then I go into something and something like a catastrophe happens, it's not as bad. So, well, where are you? So you grew up in Romania?
I grew up in Bucharest, Romania, yes.
Okay.
I went to fashion high school and then to law school because in my family was no to be an artist because that's not the profession. So this is why I end up in law school. So when I graduated law school in Romania, I moved to the U.S., to New York, to Sunnyside, when I was 22.
And that was in 98.
And that was in 98.
Okay.
Yes.
So you just graduate law school, never been to the U.S. before.
Never.
Your first time in the U.S. after grad school, you're in your early 20s. What is that experience like?
Home. I felt home because ever since I remember, probably I was 5, 6 years old, I wanted to be a successful businesswoman in New York, not knowing what New York means or success or business for that matter. So when I got here, I was really happy and I felt home.
What was Romania like in, the 80s, 90s?
So Romania was a communist country until 1989. We didn't have much. Food was rationalized. I remember being online with a little coupon with my grandmother to get bread and sugar and oil and things like that. But then everything changed in Eastern Europe and in Romania. And things started to change, but I still couldn't find myself there. I didn't see myself growing older in Romania. I don't know. I didn't have that image of myself.
Yeah.
But now going back, now 26 years later, changed tremendously and is gorgeous. I don't know if I would move back to Romania to live there, but for vacation and for traveling, it's fantastic. My parents are still there, so we're actually going there next month.
That's amazing. Did you have siblings growing up?
No.
You were an only child?
Yes.
Okay, so were your parents putting the expectations you mentioned before? Being an artist really wasn't an option. It was law school, I'm assuming like a corporate job. Did they put expectations on you, and did you feel pressure at all?
Pressure in sense of, but not only my parents. I guess this is the Romanian way or the Eastern European way that you have to succeed in life. No matter what you do, success, and for them, and I was preconditioned that success means money, titles, recognition, and I understood the hard way that success is not that. Now, to me, success means being at peace and being happy with what I'm doing. But it took me a hard hit and a long time to learn that.
So let's then go back to the 1998. You moved to New York City. What job do you land once you get here in the U.S.?
The first job, official job, because I had various jobs. One more fun than the other. My first official job, I was the assistant editor of the largest Romanian American newspaper. And I was writing one article on law. And I was dealing with people and businesses, and it was really, really fun. And that's the reason why when I became an attorney, because after that I went to school, I got my the law license. I took the LLM program, which is the master's program for attorneys. That allowed me to sit for the bar in New York and become a licensed attorney. And it was easy for me to open my practice because working at the newspaper, I knew a lot of people, and people knew me because of the articles that I wrote in the paper.
What year did you start your own practice?
2010.
Okay. So go ahead, sorry.
Yes, but before that, I actually started my first business in 2004, a translation agency. And again, I worked with the community, and everybody knew me. And I ran in parallel the translation agency and the law firm. And then in the same time, I took another job. I met part of the various jobs that I was doing. I learned bookkeeping. So I was introduced to an accountant, and the accountant introduced me to the man who will soon become the New York Taxi King, the gentleman that had most of yellow cabs in New York.
Mm-hmm.
So later on, I became his CFO. So I had all of those businesses and titles, and I was super excited about the titles more than anything else. CFO, attorney, businesswoman, office, employees. Was I happy? No. I was stressed and miserable and tired and sick all the time. And I didn't feel that success is all the money in the world wouldn't fill the void that I had inside.
It's crazy because our society today, I went through it, chasing the money. That's going to make me happy. The title will make me happy. If I make X amount of dollars, that'll make me happy and I will feel fulfilled here. But what I was lacking was the inner work that I need to do on myself and getting right with myself before I could actually enjoy what was really good for me, the health, the family, my daughter, etc.
Yeah, because nothing comes from the outside.
Starts within.
Yep.
So you were working with he was the owner of Yellow Cab, right?
Yes.
And he held
owned owned and operated most of yellow cabs in New York, yes.
And he, if I could be wrong, but he owned a lot of majority share of the Medallions in New York
Right,
City as
yeah,
well, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
And they were a mortgage, right? Like people were mortgaging them.
When I started working with him, the medallion value was about 250,000. In few short years, that became $1.2 million.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Was that 2010?
Yes, something like that. Yep.
Yeah, I remember.
11, 12, and then it started to implode.
Uber, Lyft.
And yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're working there, CFO. You have your practice as well.
Yes.
When do you get into immigration practice?
I got into immigration in 2013.
Okay.
I mean, I've been doing immigration for the Romanian community from the beginning. Mm-hmm. Because being an immigrant, I wanted to help people. But at a certain point in 2013, I got a certain ethnicity from Romania for asylum. And the first two cases were successful. They were super nice people, hard-working families. And then when they were successful, their cases were successful, a lot of other families came. So I ended up between 2013 and 2016, I filed more than 100 asylum applications.
Can you walk us through that process of basically what you're doing for them?
Yes. So asylum in the U.S. is allowed for people who are persecuted in their home countries. So they enter the U.S. and they enter illegally, and they are allowed to file for asylum. They are put in proceedings by the government, and then at the first hearing, the asylum is filed. And being so many immigrants and so many cases, of course, the immigration court didn't have the manpower to handle all of them. So the backlog was huge. So we would file the asylum application. They would get the work permit and ID and Social Security. And then until the final hearing to actually show up in front of a judge and prove your case was probably 2-3 years later.
Because it was so backed up, it took 2 or 3.
Yeah. So what happened was they got their work permits and driver's licenses, and a lot of them disappeared. And later on, I was so stuck in my mind that, I had so many signs that things are not going in the right direction. With everything, with the taxi business, with my immigration business. Signs all over the place. But I just ignore them. I was so stuck in my mind that what I'm doing is good and I need to push ahead because that's business and that's success, that I ignored the signs until it was way too late.
To pause 1 second, what were some of those signs?
That we couldn't get hold of the clients anymore, totally disappeared. And instead of me stopping and asking why and what's behind this, and immediately to withdraw from the case and advise the court of the situation, I didn't do anything. And I waited for them to show up, and they never showed up. And with the taxi business, I knew that the business was collapsing and that he wasn't able to pay the mortgages and pay the cabs and pay the taxes. I mean, everybody knew. It's not it. I wasn't the only one that knew that, but I should not have been worried about other people, but myself. Mm-hmm. And I didn't. Again, I pushed through and I said, nothing is going to happen to me. It's fine.
Were you making significant money during this time as well? Is that what was motivating you to
I was making money, but not significant amount of money. Okay. No, I was making money to have a decent life.
Okay.
But not a lot of money. I mean, I was still living in the same apartment in Sunnyside, drove a leased car. Mm-hmm. Most of them, I expanded a lot. Most of the money that I was making were expenses. Mm. So I had a huge office, I had employees, I had a lot of expenses, various things that obviously I didn't need a lot of the things, but that's part of the success.
Mm. Was there a little bit of fear around, let's say you blew a whistle at, with Yellow Cab and said, listen, this is going to collapse, and you stepped up and said something? Do you think you were in fear that you were going to lose your title, your CFO title, or you just thought it would just never happen?
Truthfully, I so trusted in this guy that I didn't think that this is going to happen. I always thought that he's going to find a way.
Yeah.
And it was an image. I created an image for myself in my head of what a successful attorney in New York should look like. And I went by that. Big office, my daughter in private school. I didn't stop to look that she might not be happy there. But it was part of my image that I created, that my daughter has to be in private school. The same school that his son was going to, and a lot of actors, children, and super prestigious school. A school that I could not afford, but hey, it was part of the image.
Yeah, of course. Of course. So what happens next? The signs are happening. You think it could collapse, but no, you're trusting the guy that you're working for at Yellow Cab and the asylum. Like you think it's just gonna be okay and you're not gonna get in any trouble. What happens next?
what happens next is that one day I was working in the office. It was June 6, 2017, working in the office. A car pulls right in front of the office. Two people come out dressed in black. They come up to the door. So they enter the office and they come up to the door of my office. And they look at me and they said, Andreea Dumitru. That's my prior name. I said, yes. And he pulls handcuffs from his back pocket and he said, you have to come with us. I was like, what is this? Why? No answer, nothing. I was handcuffed and taken away in that car.
He brought you to the precinct?
No. I kept asking and asking, where are you taking me? What is this? Why is this for? So we started driving, and I recognized FDR North, and then continuing upstate. And I thought, literally, that I was kidnapped. And they take the exit on the Woodbury Common. And I thought, this is a joke. Somebody's taking me shopping. And when we get to the parking lot, we stop parallel to another car. And in that car, I see Gene Friedman, the taxi king, also in handcuffs. So then it's when I started to realize that it must be something related to him. We were transferred to separate cars and taken to Albany. And in Albany, I was told that I was indicted along with him for $5 million unpaid taxes. Why me? I still don't know. Because he had two other partners. Why him and me? It's a mystery to me. Because I haven't signed anything. I didn't have any decision-making power. He was taking all the decisions. So I spent 3 nights in prison in Albany, state prison, until my family was able to. So his bail was $500,000, mine was $400,000.
$40,000 you need, right?
Yes. Plus collateral.
Mm-hmm.
So my family put my apartment and some friends also, because my apartment wasn't enough to cover. So I was there for a week, for 3 days. Now, on Friday coming back, so this happened Tuesday, on Friday coming back, I called the office to let them know that I'm coming home, and then on Monday I'll be in the office. Nobody's answering the phone. None of my assistants are answering the phone. That's weird. Finally, one of my assistants answered and told me that the federal agents stopped by the office and 6 o'clock in the morning at one of the assistants to ask about the asylum applications. So basically, I lost everything in a week.
Oh my God.
So this is how the second case started, the federal case started.
Was it started because they started looking into you, taxi king, unpaid taxes, and then they started to look at you, and it became a federal case?
It was somehow, I think that the universe conspired for me to wake up, because nothing made any sense, and everything that could have happened wrong went wrong. So, yes, the taxi king, and how my daughter found out about this, my mugshot was plastered on the TV. And she was having breakfast, getting ready to go to school, and
I'm sorry.
my family didn't want to tell her. Of course, what can you tell a 14-year-old girl? And then she sees me on TV. But it was, I don't believe in coincidences. But in the same time that the taxi business collapsed, the clients that disappeared, why did they disappear? They were arrested for ATM fraud. So now, stepping back and putting myself in the federal prosecutor's shoes, what do you think of this woman that files 100 applications and then clients disappear and then she doesn't say anything? Maybe she's the ringleader, right? Maybe she's bringing them in and she makes a lot of money, which wasn't the case, but that led them to me because I was the immigration attorney for all of them. And I didn't take proper action in reporting what happened to the court, which, as an attorney, I had a duty to. So this is how the federal case started, because they thought that I was the ringleader of the ATM fraud. And they realized they have nothing on that. And then they put me down for immigration, for asylum fraud.
So it's the end of 2017, essentially, and you are mid to late 2017. You are facing a federal case and a state-level case.
Yes.
That is a lot.
Yeah.
Where were you mentally at this point?
Numb, in denial. I believed that I so believed in the American legal system.
Hence being a lawyer.
And the fact that I wasn't guilty of anything. Yes, I didn't do anything intentionally, but from the eyes of the prosecutors, I did a lot that I should not have done as an attorney. But I wasn't taking responsibility for my own actions. And I continued in my denial. So I chose to go to trial.
Against the feds?
Yep.
Ooh. You took the feds to trial.
Yes.
What's the success rate with the feds? 93?
Oh, less than 2%.
98. 97, 98. Woo.
Yeah.
Okay, let's hear it.
Yep. And I was so, I looked so put together and looked that I know what I'm doing. I took an equity loan on my already mortgaged house, apartment. It's not a house, it's a co-op. Mm-hmm. And I hired 2 sets of attorneys. But as an attorney, I looked so put together that they didn't have the courage, I guess, to tell me, hey, why don't you sit down and actually educate yourself as to the success rate of criminal cases in New York, especially in Southern District, where all the famous cases and a very tough judge. I said, no, I'm not taking the plea. They offered 2 years. I said, no, I'm going to trial. And guess what? I got a penalty trial, which it's another charge, a superseding indictment. It's another charge. And the trial took 2 weeks. And Thanksgiving week 2018, I was found guilty on all charges. And I got 5 years.
Where's the state case at this point?
Oh, the state case is over because at that time, Gene Friedman, so the taxi king, testified against his friend Michael Cohen. Yes, that Michael Cohen. And the case was closed because of that.
Okay.
Yeah. And unfortunately, he passed away 1 month short of his 50th birthday.
Okay, so it's November 2018. You're handed down a 5-year sentence. Do you have to report in right there?
Oh, because I have dual citizenship. The judge revoked bail, and I was taking in the famous MCC. Otherwise, I would have been given a date to surrender to Danbury. But my transformation and my wake-up call started that first night in prison. So probably without the MCC experience, I would not have been here.
What was it like? You do not fit the stereotype for someone who would be in prison. What was it like for you?
It was horrifying. It was tough. It was... I can't even find the words. However, in the same time, all the stereotypes disappeared. You know, in this society, we have this... all kinds of stereotypes. Gender, color, religion, this and that, prisoner, former incarcerated person, a felon, whatever. In prison, everybody's the same. And the kindness that I received from the women in prison was incredible. And probably this experience was the only thing that could wake me up. Because again, God, universe, whatever you want to call it, gave me so many signs before that I ignored. And now I feel blessed that actually this experience happened and I am where I am right now. As horrifying as it was. More for my daughter than for myself and for my parents. But I'm grateful.
Sounds like it was a very humbling experience for you.
Yes.
And you needed that.
Yes.
And it made you grateful for what you really do have. Your daughter, your health, your parents, etc. Many other things.
Yes. Great friends who were with me all the time throughout this ordeal. I mean, a lot of them, most of them disappeared. But my true friends were there and they're still there with me. Every step of the way.
That's beautiful. You find out who your true friends are.
Yes. And I found who I am. And I'm not what I used to be, what I used to believe success is. And again, without this experience, I would not have found out. And I would have continued to be that miserable attorney. And stuck in that fake image of who I should be to fit in society.
Ultimately, how many years did you end up doing of the 5?
Close to 3.
Okay.
Because of the pandemic. So part of this transformational experience were a lot of crushing inner experiences, including 33 days in the SHU because of COVID. So those days, being stuck there, being taken to the shower 3 times a week in handcuffs, gave me a different perspective on life. And on the depth of suffering and humanity and human nature.
What is it like? So solitary confinement, SHU, it's all the same, correct?
Yes.
What is that like compared to just being in general population in prison?
So in Danbury, I was in the camp. So basically the camp it reminded me of the communist camps, summer camps when I was a kid. So minimal things like bunk bed and cold water in the bathroom and very dry dining experiences, but beautiful surroundings. So, and there were no locked doors. you could literally walk out. Of course, it was another charge of 5 years, but that's besides the point. Being in the shoe, you were locked up 24/7, except that 10 minutes shower 3 times a week.
That's insane. I would go crazy.
And at the camp, I was walking 6 miles a day. I was going to the gym. I was working. I was the town driver. I worked in the library. I worked in the kitchen. I had my classes. I taught yoga and positive thinking. So I had my life, and I was at peace. That's all that matters. But what's super interesting is that I found my peace and freedom also in solitary confinement.
What was it about solitary confinement that enabled you to find that peace within, besides it being a very humbling experience?
You know, recently it was an experiment at a university in California where people were given the opportunity to sit with their own thoughts for 15 minutes or push a button to get an electric shock. And most people took the electric shock. That solitary confinement forced me to be with myself. Because otherwise, without being forced, I would not have done it. I would probably chose the electric shock as well at that point. But I was forced. And when I went to prison, I realized that everything happens for a reason. And most likely, this is my opportunity to take the best that is coming out of this experience. For myself, for my daughter, and for the future of my growth and development. So solitary confinement, to answer your question, was my opportunity to discover myself. I was meditating probably 4 hours a day, reading, but being with myself and with my thoughts and reframing what happened, because we're not defined by what happened. We all live in stories. We all live in our own movie. So I reframed the story. And I took responsibility. Because ultimately, that's what a peaceful life is. Taking responsibility of my actions and reactions to what happened.
So it seems like like you said, solitary confinement enabled you to discover who you really were. And before that, you couldn't sit with yourself because you didn't know who you were for so long. And the titles, making money, having an important job helped fill that void instead of really sitting down and doing the work on yourself and loving yourself for who you are. What do you think it was that didn't allow you to learn about yourself for so long? What prevented you from learning about yourself for so long? And it took going to prison and being forced to be there. What was it that prevented you for so long?
I think I was afraid to stop and look and analyze my life. And now with the work that I'm doing, I know that over 95% of people don't take action to change until the pain is unbearable or until the rug is pulled from under their feet, like being forced, like I was. Mm-hmm. I was forced to change.
Now, you are a successful case of changing in our correctional facilities, right? Rehabilitation facility. I've had people on my podcast where they saw the bad side of it, or they experienced the bad side of it, where they felt like they got worse in prison and then they reoffended once they got out. Maybe lack of opportunity, lack of job, lack of then them learning a skill set during that time that they're in prison. It sounds like you made a change and rehabilitated, which is, I mean, that's amazing. And it's like the punishment forced you to take accountability. You stepped up then and took accountability and changed, learned about yourself, got comfortable with yourself, fell in love with yourself so that you could appreciate the things that matter the most. Where are you at once this all takes place and you get out of prison in 2021?
Yeah.
What was it like coming home?
Confusing.
During pandemic, it was a lot changed.
Confusing. So it took a long time for me to readjust to, and I was in for less than 3 years, to walk in normal shoes, in normal clothes, to see normal people in the street, to use an iPhone, because before I only used a BlackBerry, and I didn't know how to use an iPhone. And I was blessed, and I'm still blessed, that I have friends and family that support me. Because trying to find a job was almost impossible. I applied, and from the beginning, I was really straightforward with what happened. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't even called at interviews. Plus, I can do law. I can do finance. I do some translations, but again, people in the community know, and very few people want to deal with me. And it's okay. I mean, I understand. We all have preset ideas as to people, and we all judge, because that's human nature. And that's when I realized that this happened for a reason, for me to help other people. And I went to school and I became a coach. And now I'm a mindset coach. And I have my own podcast with my daughter, How I Escaped Prison, and it's about the mental prison that we are all stuck in. And I also started constructive escape movement, helping people find constructive ways to get out of their own ways. Because the worst that can happen to each and every one of us is not what other people are doing to us, but what we are doing to ourselves. And going back to what you said earlier, that people don't change in prison, it's part of the work that I'm doing now because it's a matter of choice. Everything that we do in life, it's a choice. I chose to see the good things, and I chose to change. And of course, was not easy and is not easy. I'm still working with myself. But how can we as society help other people see that is their choice? And how can they take the better choice for themselves?
Yeah, I like that you said it is a choice. And it's a mindset too. Exactly what you're talking about on your podcast. It is a mindset. If you are determined and you really want to do something, you'll do it.
Yes.
And it sounds like you, along with the accountability, the responsibility came to fruition through your change. And not only now are you at peace with yourself, you're trying to help others. And that's your redemption. Like that is your, full circle moment and part of your accountability as well. And I commend you on that. If you could go back to, or let's say the listener right now who is where you were in, let's say 2014, 15, 16, maybe just caught up in, the motion, caught up in the life and going after, just making more money or the title, things that are the outside things that we talked about. What piece of advice would you have for that person?
To stop and find their why. Why are you doing what you're doing? Because I didn't have that why. I didn't know what my why is. I mean, okay, when I was in Romania, I went to law school because my dad sent me to. But what was my excuse when I got here? Why did I continue with law? Why? Why and what was really success? The image of success, not the fake image that I had. I didn't have a clear why. So my advice to people is to find their true why of doing things.
My why, when I did the exact same thing, I wanted to make X amount of dollars. I was going to make everything great. I want a title. I want to look good. I want to look important. And the why was because I wanted acceptance from others. And it was, why did I need acceptance from others? Because I didn't feel good here.
Yeah.
And then it was until I started going to
accepting yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then when I started to go to therapy, and why didn't I feel good in here? Shame, guilt, fear. The list goes on. So, well, thank you for coming out. This was amazing. Thank you for helping people and all that you do, and even just sharing your story, because it's going to help a lot of people out there.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Of course.
And for what you're doing, because you're with your platform, you're giving the chance to so many people to tell their story and to help other people.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.